Shannon, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but in Chicago, particularly, like, this is playing out everywhere, but particularly in Chicago, we are watching a fascinating battle between teachers unions versus, uh, you know, public officials regarding whether or not they should open schools fully, part time. Discussing checkpoints that need to be met before teachers will even entertain coming back to school. The CDC, I think, released a statement about school reopenings and how they don't think that teachers need to be vaccinated in order for schools to be reopened. In fact, let me go and find the exact quote from the CDC director. But just overall, Shannon, what are your thoughts on the reopening schools debate?
I don't think that. Listen, I've been going back and forth on this topic a lot. I don't really think that school should reopen unless you can vaccinate the students and the teachers. That's currently where I stand right now after going back and forth.
So you say you don't think schools should reopen until teachers are vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay, so in order for a school to be open, you would need for all of the teachers to be vaccinated, or most of them, or what?
All of them.
Okay. All right. So
and I don't know about the students. I mean, more importantly, the teachers. The teachers and the staff need to be vaccinated.
Okay. So let me just read you this from the LA Times. The director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said Wednesday that schools can safely reopen even if teachers are not vaccinated against COVID-19.
I saw that article. But how?
Vaccination of teachers is not a prerequisite for safe reopening of schools, Dr. Rochelle Walensky said during a briefing by the White House COVID-19 response team. Walensky cited CDC data showing that social distancing and wearing a mask significantly reduce the spread of the virus in school settings. Right? Now, some teachers unions, including United Teachers Los Angeles, have balked at resuming in-person instruction before teachers are inoculated. LA Unified Superintendent Austin Butner has said it is critical that health officials specifically target school employees for vaccination while campuses are closed so that this impediment to reopening is removed. Now, teachers are prioritized as essential workers under the CDC's vaccination guidance, though many have yet to receive doses as the nation continues to face a shortage of the vaccine. So that's very interesting. I didn't know that teachers were prioritized as essential workers under the vaccine. So they are. Okay, so fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that your mom should probably be able to get one.
Okay, so they are in line for the first people to get a COVID vaccination. Now, based on the evidence that we have, schools do not seem to be a main source of spread.
Yeah, that's very true too.
Based on the evidence, I think me and you covered that a while back. That showed. Go ahead.
Isn't the main source of spread still indoor gatherings? Like, I feel like it's nothing. Like, I feel like it's not gyms. I feel like it's not restaurants right now. I feel like it's not schools. I feel like it's literally people going to other people's homes.
Yeah. So the main source of spreading is in private settings, people's homes, private parties that take place, breaking local restrictions. Those seem to be where COVID-19 is spreading the most. That said, I don't think that would be the case if we open society up, right?
No, I don't think so either.
Like if we opened everything up, then I think you would see movie theaters being one of the main places that COVID spreads, or malls, of course, or whatever.
Especially if you open everything to full capacity, then yes, because there's not an opportunity to social distance. So, of course, I do think, now that you're saying that, I do think that schools, if they have the ability to social distance, but I feel like if you have a full classroom, you don't really have the ability to do that. So I don't really know how that's going to work.
So here's the thing. We have the data that shows that schools are not a main spreader of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
That said, here's the problem. I believe the mainstream media deserves some blame for this stuff because they have scared the living daylights out of everybody with their news coverage. No, it's just true. Okay. Their constant news coverage, the hysteria that's taking place, the COVID death body count that they were ticking off every day until Joe Biden got in, then it took it off the news program. those things have an effect on people. When you scare people half to death, and people, they believe. If I ask people, okay, what do you think the mortality rate is for COVID-19? Most people don't know that it is probably around 0.3, 0.4%.
Very low.
They would think it is somewhere like 10% or 20% because the media coverage has been so irresponsible that it has scared everyone into believing that if you catch this thing, there's like a 10 or 20% chance you're going to die. And so with that in the back of my mind, I understand why teachers are very hesitant to go back to school. I think they're being very emotional. They're probably afraid. We've made them afraid like this.
Yep, it's true. Yeah.
And now we're reaping what we sow. I would also like to Google the median.
I mean, but I feel like also that, people have a right to be afraid because, like, if you're a teacher, right, and you've been staying home mostly this whole time and like keeping yourself safe, and then, you're suddenly faced with the possibility that you have to go back to in-person learning where the chances of you catching corona are larger because you're going to work than when you were staying home. Like people have like, what if you live with your elderly grandmother? Or like, what if you like live with at-risk individuals? Like I could understand why people are hesitant to put themselves into that environment.
So I also just quickly typed in the average and median age of public school teachers. And I think this was done in 2011, 2012. So that's quite a bit of time has passed. But at least, for here, it says the average age of teachers was 42.4 years old. Okay. The median age of teachers, which is different from average, this,
yes,
is 41, which is close to the average. And so only 15.3% of teachers are less than 30 years old. 54% are between 30 and 49 years old. So that also might explain some of the hesitance because you have teachers that now they're not close to 65, but as you go up in age, the risk of getting hit with COVID heavily increases from,
but not even just for older people, just you could be young too. If you have if you're immunocompromised, then you're also at risk, even if you're young. So people could be worried about that also.
Yeah, true. But the immunocompromised, those people I consider to be the exceptions. You know how I don't like having conversations about the exceptions to the rule, like discussing the rule. I'm just saying, if you're immune compromised, then you obviously shouldn't be going anywhere.
Exactly. That said, but what if you're staying home and you're not going anywhere, but you have to go back to school because you're a teacher?
No, I'm saying those people should be excluded.
Oh,
if you have an immune problem, then you shouldn't be going back to school. That said, our country is so fat that it makes half of us, in the risk group. It does. No one's talking about that. Around 54% of the country is in the risk group. So what are you going to do? So yeah, that's how the argument, Shannon. But then you also have, and it needs to be taken into consideration. You also have the fact that our children are getting stupider, are getting dumber as the days go by. I was about to say stupider, then I realized it's not a word. Our children are getting dumber and dumber the longer they are outside of schools. My mother is a remote teacher. I hear her every day. And I think people kind of have this fairy tale view of what they imagine remote schooling is like. It is not like a Zoom meeting. It's not. My mom spends most of her time trying to, A, make sure the students are learning and actually listening to what she's saying. B, arguing with parents. Because remember, parents, they're usually around their children, watching them do the work, or at least listening to them do the work, listening to the instruction. Every parent thinks that their child is the world. They think their child is, God's gift to us all. And so you catch some lip from a parent if you criticize their children in a way that they find to be less than flattering. And so my mom has to go back and forth with those people, which then distracts from the children being taught. Add on top of that technology happens sometimes, whether it'll be on my side where the internet will act up. And so she has to, try to restart the Wi-Fi and doing that. It is not this great, beautiful thing. Now it's better than nothing.
And I know it's not.
Not great.
I know it's not at all. I have friends, coworkers that have children that are remote learning, and I just hear every day how awful it is. So I completely agree.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And also, you have to remember that in order for parents to go back to work, something has to be done with the children.
Yes.
This is unfortunate, but we have created a society where it is normal for us to expect our children to be outside of our supervision for 8 hours a day. We don't think about that. Like, that is a pretty large chunk of time.
Yeah.
Parents depend on school so that they can work.
Yep.
And so if there's no school, then it is hard for parents to work. Now, out on top of that, this is frustrating for teachers because teachers have been saying for years that, look, we ain't babysitters. We're to teach. Like, we are here to instruct children. We are not here as your babysitters. But as this is, they kind of are babysitters too.
Yeah.
Because parents rely on them so that they can go to work. And so it is in the best interest of American parents that schools reopen so that they can proceed to look for work as well. And so parents are not going to be able to really look for work as long as they have to find a way to watch their children, which, by the way, is expensive if you begin to look for babysitters or, private companies or whatever. It's expensive. That part of the conversation is not had. And I think the solution might be a compromise. It might be this. Schools can reopen if half the teachers inside of the schools are vaccinated. Now, Shannon said all of them. I'm saying half, especially if you got the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. If you get after your second shot, if half the teachers in your school have gotten both shots, and so they have the 95% effective rating, then I think it's pretty much safe. Okay, well, half of them have the vaccine. We're going to keep socially distancing. We're going to wear masks. We're going to have all of our protocols in place. We already know that corona doesn't spread that easily in school if you take these socially distancing measures. So if we add on top of that the vaccination for extra safety, then I think teachers will have more confidence in coming back to school.
I think that I think it's easier to keep the older kids socially distanced. So I think that definitely the older kids' school should be opened now, like middle school and up probably. But I feel like younger than that, it's kind of harder to keep them. It's hard. Little kids, they have short attention span. They don't like wearing masks. I feel like it's harder to keep them in control. So I feel like definitely those teachers should get vaccinated first if we're like.
Well, but remember from the data, we know that small children don't really transport the virus like that.
All right. They don't transmit it.
They don't spread the virus to adults like that. So in some ways, kindergarten teachers, pre-K teachers are actually safer than teachers of elementary school kids or junior high school. And so if anything, I think the vaccination should work backwards. It should start from maybe we should start from junior high, because high schoolers can deal with.
All right, because we said this. High schoolers can actually stay home by themselves and still do remote learning because they're old enough, so they can actually still remote learn from their own home without parental supervision. Yes. Yeah,
it's not ideal, right? But what we can do is start from junior high, then go drop to elementary school teachers, then maybe jump to high school teachers, and then finally hit the pre-K kindergarten.
Yeah.
Is that under elementary or
what? Elementary is like 3rd through 5th.
Okay, so whatever was before 3rd grade, they hit those teachers last. That's what I would do. A compromise, right? Compromise between. Now, some of the union demands from the teachers is insane, and by the way, they should know. The teachers should know that we're doing this to put your mind at ease, because the data shows that you aren't in any actual real risk compared to the rest of the public. Like, community transmission is significantly more of a problem than school transmission. It's not even close.
Yep.
And so this is really for a teacher's state of mind. But I think we should do this because, once again, the mainstream media has freaked us all out and we all think if we catch this thing, we're going to die. So this, I think, will go a long way with helping, heal the divide between the two, and this way we can proceed to have children be, back in school. Then the parents can have more freedom. Even if parents aren't going back to work, just having more. It's not normal to spend all this time with your kids. It's just not.
No.
I know people think it is. They're like, is your kid?
It's not normal to spend all the time with anyone who lives in the house with you, your spouse, your kids, anyone you live with. It's not normal.